Okay, welcome to the Cheney et al. Or Watt et al. Second part. I'm going to talk about the procedure and the findings and the results. So first of all, they wanted to make sure that this new toy that they'd created, essentially, is a new inhaler, but it's got toys attached, that it wasn't going to impact the output. So in other words, it wasn't going to impact its effectiveness. It's fine attaching toys to an inhaler, but if it's not going to allow you to deliver the medication properly, because lots of medication has been lost into the toys and things like that, then it's no use. So they made this comparison and they found that no significant differences were found. So therefore it was complementary, it says. In other words, it was exactly the same delivery as the traditional inhalers. So it doesn't compromise drug delivery, the new Funhaler. So they were asked to use the Funhaler instead of the normal PMDI and spacer inhaler to administer medication over a 2-week period. So if they're using the either the PMDI or the spacer, they are asked to stop using that and they're asked to use the Funhaler for a 2-week period. I'll clarify that in a second. But they used a matched questionnaire, in other words, the same questionnaire completed by parents after sequential use of Breathtech inhaler and the Funhaler. Okay, now to clarify that, the first questionnaire, essentially what happened was the researchers contacted the parents at home from getting their names from clinics over around a 51-mile radius. And they phoned the parents and said, would you mind taking part in this piece of research? Do you mind if we come to the house? And so the parents, the researchers went to, the lead researcher, which I think was Watt in this study, went to the houses of the parents and asked them for consent, but didn't tell them at this point about the Funhaler and show them the Funhaler and that kind of thing. So what they did, so that was hopefully to keep them a little bit blind to what they were looking for, try and avoid some social desirability or demand characteristics at this point. So they used an interview to deliver this questionnaire. Okay, so they are verbally administering this standard questionnaire to the parents, and that's quite important in terms of evaluation. If you think about it, you're not sitting doing this questionnaire anonymously. It is a researcher at your house who's asking you about your ability to administer medication to your child. Okay, so at the beginning of the research, before the Funhaler had been used, and then so that's them turning up with these parents who were already using their normal inhaler, either a spacer or a normal PMDI, the normal inhaler that you see people using. They then said, right, use the Funhaler for 2 weeks and we'll come back. Okay. After the 2 weeks, they returned and they gave them the second questionnaire via interview again in their homes. Okay. So they're collecting data from the self-report and they are trying to find out how easy each device was to use. These are what the questions are relating to. Compliance of parents and children, so how much do they stick to the regime? Are they sticking to administering this dose? And the treatment attitude, so do the kids enjoy taking the medication? Is it a battle getting them to take the medication? And then they also did this during the course of the Funhaler. So for that 2 weeks, they called at random parents, didn't tell them when they'd be phoning, but they'd phone them up and say, right, did you try and medicate your child yesterday? So they're asking them about the day before. And so this was kind of a little snapshot, a few little snapshots of, so did you take it yesterday? So they're using that to back up their data. Okay, so they're not completely reliant on the interviewed questionnaires at the end of the 2 weeks. Now the original article then goes on to argue why the Funhaler is so appealing to children. Okay, and so it says these reasons. First of all, it's got these incentive toys, so the spinners and the whistles. And skipping down to this last one, it also anticipates that the children might get bored of those toys after a particular while, but its modular arrangement means, so the way that it's designed means that you can take the toys out and you can replace them with new incentive toys. Okay, so nice design. The second one, it's a great sentence this. The design of the toys themselves ensures sufficient inspiratory resistance to minimize entrainment of inspired air through the toy circuit. Okay, so what does that mean? Took me a while to figure it out, if I'm honest, but what it means is simply too much air isn't lost into the toys. It ensures sufficient inspiratory resistance. So in other words, the chamber where the toys are doesn't it does hold resistance. It doesn't mean that all the air that you're sucking in. So if the inhaler's here and it's attached to a chamber, and then the child is sucking through a the part there, and you've got a chamber up there that has got the toys in. It's a great drawing, I think you'll agree. But if the toys are up there, it means that there's resistance there, which means that all the air that the child's sucking through the thing doesn't get lost into the toys. It means that there's enough resistance there that it'll set the toys going, but most of the air, the medication, is going to go into the child's lungs rather than into the toys. Okay, so there is sufficient resistance to minimize the entrainment, is the loss of air that you're bringing in into the toy circuit. Okay, the design means the toys work best with a deep breathing pattern as well, and that means, so if you're going to get the whistle as loud as possible and it's going to be as fun as possible, the child has to breathe as deeply as possible. Okay, which is what you want for a child who's taking asthma medication, deep breaths. So, on to the findings, key findings. They did find improved parental and child compliance. So, when surveyed at random, so this is over the phone, 38% more parents were found to have medicated their child the previous day when using the Funhaler compared to their existing small volume spacer device, 22 out of 27 versus 16 out of 27 respectively. In other words, highly significant p-value there. You've 0.016 is well below the 0.05 that we required. 60% of children took the recommended 4 or more cycles per aerosol delivery. So that's that's taking the 4. They've got to inhale 4 times each time they're taking it. 24 out of 30 compared to 15 out of 30. So again, significant differences when using the Funhaler compared to the standard small volume spacer. Significantly more parents reported they were always successful in medicating their child using the Funhaler, 22 out of 30, compared to their existing device. So only 3 out of 30 times would they say they would successfully medicate their child with their existing device, whereas the Funhaler massively improved that. Okay, so the possible conclusions of this. The improved adherence combined with satisfactory delivery characteristics suggests that the Funhaler may be useful for management of young asthmatics. And remember, by satisfactory delivery characteristics, we mean it is giving them the right amount of medication, and the Funhaler is encouraging them to take the right amount of medication. Okay, adherence is actually sticking to it. Adherence to medical regimes, sticking to it, doing it every day, sticking to when you should be taking it. And the satisfactory delivery characteristics is it is delivering the correct amount of medication, or the kids are taking enough breaths to take all of the medication that they are required to do. The use of the Funhaler could possibly be translated into improved medical measures of clinical outcome. In other words, we're linking this to behavioural theories. We're linking this to operant conditioning, law of effect. Perhaps the Funhaler is a model to make taking medication more fun, and that can improve the measures of clinical outcomes. So it can, in other words, improve the lives of children who are asthmatic. The use of functional incentive devices such as the Funhaler may improve the health of children. And the more research is recommended in long-term efficacy, right? So is it actually effective over the long term. That's the big criticism of this study, is this is only 2 weeks, and the adults know they're taking part in a study. Is this going to be a long-term impact? Okay, you really need to do longitudinal research, perhaps with anonymous questionnaires, to really find if the kids are sticking to it. You remember having a toy when you were little. How long did it last before you were bored of that toy? Okay, and although you can replace the toys in the Funhaler, how long is it going to last for? Okay, so there you go. Make some notes, go back over any bits you're not sure of, and summarise the study. Thanks, everybody.